I'm Nadia Ely, and welcome to today's discussion around sustainability. We've created this podcast to showcase Grid Resiliency's programs while featuring top leaders and subject matter experts who highlight the strides they're making. In this episode, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer Diane Leopold and Grid Resiliency Manager Tickle discuss how fostering a culture of sustainability allows our business units to thrive while positioning the company to meet and exceed its commitment toward a clean energy future and becoming the most sustainable energy company in America. Thank you for being with me. Diane, we'll start with you. When people hear our goal of becoming the most sustainable energy company in the country, they think about generation, offshore wind, solar, etc. How would you say our grid resiliency team fits that goal?
Thank you, Nadia. So when I think about sustainability, I'll step back maybe 7 years ago when we first started discussing this. And originally, sustainability equaled renewables, as you just said. People thought about generation, renewables, solar, and wind. And early on, we expanded that definition. Everybody had a different definition of sustainability. And it was environmental sustainability in a more holistic view of, as a company, what are we doing to create a more sustainable energy source and planet, as well as business sustainability. How can we do this for the long term and have it be valuable for all of our stakeholders? Now, fast forward a few years into the last few years, and you think about some of the different events that have occurred. The Texas cold snap and power outages due to wildfires in California, a war in Europe, COVID and the supply chain issues that occurred, inflation, and even our most recent polar vortex here on the East Coast. I think there's been a large momentum that a better understanding of sustainability is clean, reliable, and affordable. And you're not truly sustainable unless you have all three legs of that stool. And so reliability has never had more of a focus in the sustainability picture than it has in these last couple of years. And meanwhile, resiliency of the grid has never become more complicated with renewable generation, with the electrification of transportation and vehicle to grid technologies, with the increasing demand from data centers. So I think how resiliency and grid resiliency fits into sustainability has become really one of the forefront topics in energy.
Great points, Diane. Turning to you now, can you discuss how the programs within grid resiliency are making the grid more reliable and primed to handle the renewables Diane just mentioned that will make up the grid of the future?
Yeah, thank you, Nadia, and thank you, Diane, for segueing so well into this question. I think as a company, we recognize that we're in the midst of a significant shift that's driven by this growing dependence on the grid that Diane described, and it became evident with all those events that we're talking about. And it's also a growing presence of renewable energy generation on the system. So for over 100 years, the grid was predominantly designed to handle a one-way power flow, meaning we've had utility power plants that generate electricity, you have transmission lines that transport it long distances, you hit a substation that steps down the voltage, and then distribution lines that essentially take it to the customer. But now, we're seeing all these great forms of renewables. We're all familiar with wind and solar that we see. They range in sizes from larger utility scale installations like the offshore wind to smaller solar panel installations that we see on everybody's homes nowadays. So instead of having a few large stable power plants operated by a utility 24/7, You have this multitude of different ones across the grid that are all shapes and sizes. They're generating at different capabilities throughout the day, turning on and off. And it creates a situation where the power flow on our system is much more dynamic and it's constantly changing. And the impact on the way we need to operate our system, it's significant and it becomes very complex. And it's fueling this need for improvements in the infrastructure and technology that allow us to provide reliable service, but also allow us to operate the system safely and efficiently. And that's where, like so many of the programs, I think, within grid resiliency and the overarching grid transformation plan, we're addressing those needs. And I probably don't have time to go through all of them, but just touching on a few. We have a main feeder hardening program where we target circuits that feed customers that historically haven't seen the level of service we would like. So we're rebuilding and re-architecting the mainline circuitry on those circuits in a way that keep lights on. And when storm events do occur and service is impacted, we're able to get the lights on more quickly and get folks back to their daily routines. And this is really important when we have those significant weather events like hurricanes and ice storms. We have a program called Integrated Grid Devices, or IGD as we call it, where we install line protection devices and sensors that we can communicate with. The information that we get from that equipment, it'll eventually enable software platform that's being implemented by another group that'll identify fault locations on our system. And then from there, it'll eventually isolate the trouble and automatically restore service to customers by opening and closing those devices. The devices with those sensors, they also help provide visibility to the load flows on the system and the impact that DER is having. We also have a voltage optimization program that essentially it's going to allow us to regulate voltage more efficiently to our customers within established bandwidth. This will in turn result in energy savings for our customers on the order of about 1%. And we'll be able to do this through a software platform that can interpret voltage information that's coming from AMI metering technology and then send commands to equipment in a substation that then raises or lowers the voltage as needed. There's a plethora of other programs, Strategic Underground, that continues to be kind of a poster child for the overhead to underground conversion programs that improve reliability. There are programs under the GTP umbrella that are managing substation technology upgrades and deployment of a DERMS platform that'll provide more visibility again to the DER on the system in a way that we didn't have before, and it'll give us the ability to operate that protects customers and protects our system. And I could probably talk for days about all the great work, but the underlying theme is these programs are in place to just help us continually improve upon the resiliency of the system, provide us visibility to what's going on, and making sure the system's available for customers and for all this great renewable energy.
I'd like to add, and Aaron just gave us a whirlwind tour of so many different programs that we have, but just from seeing others in the industry, I think that our company is really at the forefront of a lot of these programs, and the number that we simultaneously juggle is very impressive. And there's really two categories. One is really improving the reliability day in and day out in the grid hardening and the undergrounding and those types of programs. And then there's a whole other set of programs that's really looking at this dynamic self-healing grid of being able to accommodate the more dynamic and variable flows on the grid and ensure the reliability and resiliency of it. And I just think it's very exciting. Aaron did a great job explaining them.
Thanks to you both. Diane, what are some of the unique ways, technologies, or innovations we're exploring or investing in that relate to sustainability?
So I will stay away from the grid technologies because I think Aaron gave a fantastic rundown of all of those. So other types of programs and technologies and innovations across the company, we are piloting different kinds of batteries, not only non-lithium, but longer duration batteries, and coupling batteries with microgrid solutions. We are investigating different advanced nuclear technologies, small modular reactors that could be much more flexible and dispatchable than prior generations of nuclear technology. Also, on the generation side, as you see how solar has developed over time, used to be fixed panels. Now we're looking at bifacial solar panels. So you have a solar panel on the top and the bottom with tracking devices that moves around as the sun moves through the day to make it much more efficient and effective to generate power. We're doing hydrogen blending pilots on our natural gas side and blending 5 and up to 10% hydrogen in some test facilities to see if we can move towards a blending of green hydrogen, which would be carbon free. We are one of the largest investors in the country, our program on renewable natural gas, which captures methane basically from the poop of dairy farms and hog farms, and it captures it, it cleans it, and it puts it into a natural gas pipe and is actually carbon negative. So it captures more greenhouse gases than it produces by a significant amount. And then we're really looking to try to support customers in accelerating the move to electrification of transportation. So we have charging as a service for fleets and businesses, and we've been supporting a lot of the counties in moving towards electric school buses. So they're just a little bit of a dabbling of the types of innovations and programs that we're moving forward with.
Thank you, Diane. It's fascinating to hear about all the initiatives that we have in place as we strive to become the most sustainable energy company in America. I appreciate your expertise. Aaron, I'm going to come back to you and ask you what kind of challenges you're expecting or experiencing as the initiatives you're leading aim to transform and improve the grid. And do you have any plans in place to overcome those challenges?
It's a really good question. There's been a lot of short-term challenges with material issues and supply chains, I think that we're all aware of. But I think one of the biggest or more interesting challenges for a lot of these programs and technologies and the issues that we're talking about, there's no true roadmap for a lot of the work. We're learning and figuring a lot of this out as we go. But at the same time, that's what makes it exciting, I think, as well. We have to carry out this mission and find a way to make it all happen. And at Dominion, we have a lot of expertise to lean on. We're a leader in the industry in a lot of ways, but the industry in general, we're all kind of wrestling with these same challenges of how do we manage renewables? How do we deploy these new technologies? How do we implement these similar programs? So the issues and the conversations are not necessarily unique to us. Some companies may be further along in some areas than others. There are a lot of different variables at play, but the industry is good about sharing ideas and strategy. And we also work with various vendors with specific expertise in areas where we may see a need. So I think just relying on the expertise we have, communicating across all the affected groups is critical, and then knowing when and who to call when we do need perspective on something that's important. So those are kind of all ways I think that keep us moving forward.
Aaron discussed all of those many programs that we're involved with. A lot of working through challenges is really, learning by doing and ramping up these programs and just starting them. And the number that we have, just year one, we might get a certain amount of miles in or a certain amount of meters in, and we really learn to ramp them up. And just having a pilot test of vehicle to grid technology, and one pilot test, you see some challenges and you just work through it. I think the teams do a phenomenal job at really addressing the challenges just by moving forward.
Yeah, this is a really good point. You start out and you have a plan, and as you start to scale, you learn things and you have to pivot. And we've had to do a lot of that with several of our programs. We're kind of learning as we go. And I think to be successful, we just got to be flexible, willing to experiment and learn. And that's kind of the path we're taking right now.
Great points from both of you. At Dominion Energy, we stay true to our core values and our actions speak louder. Diane, can you share some examples of excellence in sustainability?
Oh, Absolutely. I think there's quite a few of them. In many aspects, we are a leader in this area. So we are an integrated electric and natural gas utility. And we were the first large integrated utility to say that we would be net zero carbon emissions for both carbon and methane. So, both on the electric side and the natural gas side, that we would reduce our emissions to be net carbon neutral. And I think that was a really big deal. And along with that, I wish I could remember, it's probably about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, we did the first Sustainability Investor Day. It was an investor day to host it at Wall Street solely to discuss sustainability goals. We also were one of the first companies to expand our net zero goal into scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. So they are the emissions that either you generate as part of creating your product, it's also upstream or downstream emissions. So getting the fuel to your power stations, whoever is providing that, what are their emissions, or what are your customer emissions, which is mostly relevant on the natural gas side, becoming carbon neutral on behalf of our upstream and downstream suppliers. And that was a really big deal to say that we would be net zero, not only our own direct emissions from our power stations and the work that we do, but also up and downstream. We also pride ourselves on excellence and setting very high expectations on transparency in reportings and business dealings. So examples of that would be our climate report, our sustainability report, self-reporting any environmental incidents, building environmental performance into our contractors for people that do business with us. We really do set a high bar of expectations there that is definitely part of being a sustainable business. And then focusing on our customer bills and that piece of the affordability leg and customer experience, energy share, energy efficiency tools, as well as, of course, being one of the largest owners of solar generation. We are building the largest offshore wind farm in North America, and we've built one of the largest renewable natural gas portfolios. So I think all of those things really show actions speak louder and very much true to our core values.
All very impressive, Diane. Thank you for sharing those. Lastly, and this question I'm going to direct to both of you. How must we evolve to achieve our goal to become the most sustainable energy company in the country? And what can our colleagues do to attain that? Aaron, I'll start with you.
We need to be open to keep evolving. I think we all have to continue to be on board with the goal, and that starts with understanding why it's important. As a company, we have to keep folks informed, not just internally, but also our customers and lawmakers and regulators about the challenges we see, and be transparent with options we consider and the technologies. We have to understand that this isn't a situation where we're going to arrive at the summit, so to speak, and plant a flag and then we're done. It's an ongoing journey, and we have to be open to different approaches, open to exploring new technology and learning things that are going to see us through this period of transition, but also, that set us up well to keep making progress in the future and keep improving reliability and making sure the grid's available.
I very much agree with that. All ideas start small, and it's one idea at a time. An energy efficiency idea, how to use AMI meter information to improve reliability or customer experience, a new program to improve efficiency, a new app, office composting, even our renewable natural gas business, which is huge now, just started with an idea, or our methane reduction program. So I would just encourage people to think about such things as Spark Tank. or our Lyra program, other innovation sponsored employee ideas. And, it's great to have an idea and pursue it and really think about how it can really make a difference over time.
I'd like to thank Diane Leopold and Aaron Tickle for their expertise and insights. Learn more about Dominion Energy's commitment to sustainability at sustainability.dominionenergy.com. Thanks for listening, and be on the lookout for future episodes. I'm Nadia Ely.